You need a great opener, like somehow we're adults. Do.
We can record that right
some
now.
Kind of like
we can record that right now.
Everybody be quiet.
Somehow we're adults.
We're weird.
Yeah, abnormal, I guess. So this is going to be something new that I'm going to do, and you are going to do as well. As we're going to do.
Are we starting now? I need like one of those like 1, 2, 3 action.
No, because that makes it even harder. Those make it even more awkward. I was just gonna say, so we're gonna start doing podcasts like this now, where it's you and I, and we like pick a subject and like go over it. Since like, you want to start doing podcasts as well, and I think it would be fun to do. I think, obviously I mention you a lot on my actual podcast of like the interview styles, stuff like that too. So it'd be kind of cool to have little shorter episodes for people to check in who, I guess, if we're an example of a relationship that they should want to look at, I don't know. It's weird to even think about.
Run.
Huh?
Said or they should just run.
And just run. Yeah. Who knows? I don't know if we're experts, but
we're definitely not.
but we've been together for a long time too, so.
Got 7 years in our pockets, so I guess that's good for something.
Yep. And you haven't left nothing. We actually got married too, so that's cool. We've lived together for
6.
So we've been together for 7, so it'd be it'd be going on 6 years, I think, in December, because we like moved in a little bit after a year. But
then married for 1.
Well, it'd be going on March. So right now, for people listening, it's September, which is the 9th month, and we got married in the 3rd month. So basically a year and a half now. So, but marriage doesn't feel any different. You just change the name for what you call each other.
Like the amount of people that asked me after we got married, "Oh, how's marriage life?"
The married life, yeah.
Like, it's the same thing as it was before.
For us, it was. For a lot of people, it's different, though.
It's so weird.
For us, it wasn't any different because we already lived together. So many people, they don't live together before they get married. So it changes so much after they get married too. They gotta start living with somebody who they never lived with before, and it gets all weird. And but for us, it was just like, oh yeah, she's got to do some work with like Social Security to change her name. Like she's got to get a new ID. Like it's like not really anything changed.
It was just a last name change and like any financial stuff, but other than that, it was exactly the same.
Yeah, pretty much.
I probably had like 20 people ask me that.
Same. And I said the same thing. I was like, anytime someone asked me, I'd be like, it's great, I guess. I mean, like
it's the same as before.
It's like, I mean, you're living with your best friend who you want to strangle sometimes, and
a lot of the time,
and then other times you're like, wow, this is my best friend, like I have somebody to go do stuff with all the time. Really, It really takes the loneliness out of life.
That's true.
Yeah, because I mean, we've talked about it before, but I was like, man, I honestly don't think I would do well being single.
I would be horrible. I'm like the most awkward socially person on the planet. I would suck at dating.
I mean, dudes are just like inherently, like, at least with me, I would be crazy. I feel like me having someone who relies on me helps me to stay more responsible. But like if I didn't have that, I would just be like off the walls. I'd be like drinking and like I'd probably have a DUI right now, or I'd be like at bars all the time. Like
probably.
I don't know. I wouldn't be good financially. I wouldn't be.
I would sure as heck not be good at financially.
I would just spend all my paychecks just to go have a good time. Like it would just it'd be tough. It'd be tough. I don't. If you see somebody who's like single, who's like got it together, like that's pretty cool, because I don't feel like that would be me.
Definitely not me.
Yeah.
I think we make a good team.
Yeah.
Somewhat.
A lot of that. Well, so the real focus of what we wanted to talk about today was communication in a relationship and how important it is. Which, it's tough because I think communication-wise, some of the things I've told my friends and stuff before is like, you perceive stuff differently when it's the person you're in a relationship with that you see all the time. Like if someone tells me something that's a friend or a family member or something like that, they tell me something, like I'll perceive it one way, but if you had told me the exact same thing, I take it with a whole different bundle of emotions. So like if you could tell me something and it would just piss me off. And then other times, like, if my friend told me that same thing, I'd be like, you know what? That's very introspective, and that's correct. Yeah, I should be like that. Yeah, or I should think that way.
It happens all the time.
Yeah, and I try to be cognizant of it because it's tough.
Or like you'll do a diet and you're like, oh, you should try this, and then I would get really upset, and 5 months later I hear it on a podcast or something, and then I'm doing it.
Yeah, that's tough for me because how many times has that worked with like workouts or like recently you started doing like kettlebell training workouts, and like 5 years ago I told you should do that, something like that, like strength training, and you're like, no, I want to run, and I'm like, okay, that's great, I'm glad you're running, but like, you know, strength training is really, really important and make you really healthy and stuff like that. But yeah, it's tough.
The intermittent fasting too, like you told me about that forever ago.
You called me unhealthy. You
went with me to, that is so bad.
You went with me to doctor's appointments and asked my doctor, like, listen, he's doing this thing where he like doesn't have breakfast. He's crazy. And like, I literally was like so offended when you bring it up at the doctor's office too. I'm like, oh my God, this lady is like this is such a foreign concept.
You're like eating one meal a day.
Yeah, so it's not that hard to do. I was having a huge meal. I wasn't eating enough. It was just you were worried about me having like an eating disorder, and like you were worried that was becoming an eating disorder, and I'm like, it's not that bad.
And then 6 months later, I'm like, oh, I'm not eating till 12 o'clock.
Yeah. And now I really feel the need to go to your doctors and be like, listen, this lady doesn't eat the most important meal of the day. Yeah.
I still drink my coffee. So.
But if your friend had told you about it instead of me, you would have perceived it in a whole different way. Like, wow, it's actually, they say the brain fog is gone and like they're able to think
You're
better.
more alert.
Yeah. And then when you do eat, you feel better about it because you're not just constantly digesting food. Yeah. Crazy idea, right?
100%.
What do you think communication-wise helps us the most in our relationship? Like, what do you value as far as communication goes?
Understanding how the other person reacts to certain things. Like, when I'm not in the best mental space, like, you know, to kind of, like, give me space and let me process before we keep going versus, like, having that turn into an argument versus you're kind of, like, always super, like, chill. Like, all the time. And if I'm agitated and you're just like, oh, yeah, life is great, blah, 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 like, that pisses me off. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of, like...
Pisses me off when I'm like... What did that lady tell us at AT&T? I'm like the golden retriever. Yeah. What did she say? What is it with Spanish women always dating like these golden retriever white dudes?
Like you're just always just happy to exist, and it's like no problem could ever ruin your mood. And I'm like
golden retriever white boy. It didn't make sense, but it makes sense. It's weird.
So I guess like the biggest thing is just like understanding how the other person reacts and what the other person needs in order to like solve a problem without letting it like escalate, I guess you could say.
And it doesn't always work because a lot of stuff escalates, but you know, it just is what it is. Deal with it how we deal with it.
Yeah. I'm the problem.
Yeah. No, I think communication wise, the thing that helps me the most is just understanding how the other person reacts to things, like you said. Because like for me, like whenever I see you agitated about something, and it could be nothing, it could be something where I'm like, why is this even something to be agitated about? But I just go, listen, it's an emotion. She doesn't necessarily have control over how she feels about it. Let her calm down. Once she calms down, then she'll be like rational again.
Are you saying I'm irrational?
When you're mad, you're very irrational. You get mad at everything. Yeah.
It depends.
The littlest things will make you mad when you're angry.
It's like 0 or 100.
Yeah, that's that Spanish blood.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
The other thing is just like not taking things personally.
That's easier said than done too.
Like understanding that like whatever you're bringing up or whatever, like at the end of the day, we're a team. Like you always like to say.
Same team. That's what I say. I don't say we're a team. I say same team, dude. Like, because oftentimes you fight me on things like it is like we're on two different teams competing for something. I'm like, hey man, I support the same I'm the same side of the team you are. We both want the same things.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's like not taking it personally and just understanding that at the end of the day, we both have the same goal. Yeah.
We want the same things. We want to be, you know, in on good terms, and we want to be, you know, we want everything to go in the same direction. Exactly. We're both trying to steer the ship in the correct direction.
So I guess first one is like understanding how the other person reacts, and second one is just not taking things personally because you both have the same end goal.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it helps a lot too that like the 5 love languages, kind of understanding what that looks like too, because like each different person receives love differently, and you have to understand like if it's words of affirmation and stuff like that. I highly recommend that book to relationships.
It's so cliche, but it actually works.
Yeah,
like the first time I heard it and you brought it up, I was like, okay, yeah, sure, let's read the 5 love
languages.
Some
book is gonna do it. Yeah, but I thought it was
Are we gonna go buy crystals next? Like,
if it was up to you, we would. No, it works a lot for me as far as communication goes, because I think obviously being the person who wanted to have a podcast and loves having podcasts and talking to people, I communicate a lot. So I think that communication is the biggest aspect for me, because like I'm a very unassuming person most of the time. Okay. But no, as far as like sometimes people ask me something, and I mean, especially with you, I'll be like, I need you to explain. Like another thing too is me and you, both of our brains work too quick. So like sometimes we'll just be like going somewhere and we'll say something to the other person. It's like, okay, hold up, let me rewind. Let me explain why I just asked that. But you don't necessarily do that. Sometimes you'll ask that question and look at me and I'm like, we were just talking about getting pizza.
I have like ADD brain, so it's like 100%. One thought goes here and then another one crosses and I can get back to the original.
Yeah, 100%. I was like, we were just talking about getting pizza and now you're talking about when we went on a trip to Utah. Like, I don't understand. Like, where did these things meet? Like, I don't understand. And you're like, oh, well, I saw a sign over there and it reminded me. And sometimes that happens for me too. There's those funny little moments. But I think the biggest thing is the hardest part about communication is doing it in states of heightened emotions. That's the hardest part. Is like when you're angry or we're angry, and both of us, because like I'm pretty reflective when it comes to like personalities. So like if you're mad about something or you're mad in general, I get mad too, just because you're mad. So it gets really difficult because like if we're having a communication about something or we're talking about something or trying to work through something, and you get mad and then I get mad and then me getting mad makes you madder, and it's like at that certain point we're both just flames throwing gas at each other. You know what I mean?
I go into like self-preservation where I just completely like shut down, so there is no conversation to be had.
Yeah, I don't do anything to make the situation better either when it comes to that.
Yeah, anytime it escalates, I just shut down.
Yeah, and I found the best way to handle it is just like walk away, different parts of the house, just listen to a podcast, work on dishes, do something, do something to just calm down, take a shower, like something.
But we always have to fix whatever issue is going on before we go to bed.
Yeah.
Like that's not something that like gets saved for the next day.
Yeah, don't go to bed angry at each other. Like if you're really angry and you really care about that person, you shouldn't be able to fall asleep when you're angry. It's easier said than done sometimes, but there's been times where I'm like,
screw him, I'm going to bed.
There's been times where I'm like half asleep and I'm like, no, stay awake. We have to fight about this. You know what I mean? And I think it's important that we talk about those things though, because it does make me like sleep better. It like you don't wake up
mad.
There's nothing like going to bed angry and then waking up still angry from the night before. Like it just sets the whole pace for the next day.
You're like, who's gonna say something first?
yeah, it's not worth it.
Yeah, I know.
It's not worth it. And most of the time too, like just gentlemen in your relationship, one of the best things you can do when she's angry for seemingly no reason is just think about your spouse like a toddler.
Oh my God.
They either need a nap or they need to eat. And then most of the time they're good or they're bored. Give them something to do, eat, or let them sleep. And they can normally correct themselves.
Every feminist woman's going to hate me, but that's true.
100% true. No, it's 100% true. Like, what happened the other day? You were like a little mad.
Oh, we went to, like, after your surgery and your medications got screwed up, and I was getting so frustrated because your medicine was going to wear off and you were going to start having pain. And we had to, like, wait another 30, 45 minutes for it to be completed, even though I had called several days ahead. And you're like, go through Chick-fil-A. You'll be happier after you eat some nuggets.
No, we don't need to spend money. And I literally was like, oh my God, go through Chick-fil-A. Like, I'm not, just take a right, go.
And then I felt bad because he couldn't
eat any
solid food.
I was high as a kite.
I'm not going to eat Chick-fil-A while you're over here. Like,
I was high as a kite. I honestly forgot we went to Chick-fil-A. Yeah. I honestly forgot.
And I felt better. I was like a whole different person 5 minutes later.
Yeah. Yeah, like even when the sky is falling. Like, you're just like singing a little bit, like you like start dancing a little bit too when you're hungry
No,
like that.
seriously.
Yeah, but no, there was one time that wasn't the instance I was remembering because I was definitely coming off of anesthesia at that
That's the
time.
one I remember. You're like, you need to go get food.
I've gotten pretty good about this. I've gotten pretty good about understanding when you're just hungry or need a nap. And the other day you got mad about something, and I remember we were in the car, and then like next thing I look over and you're asleep, and I was like, thank God, that's what she needed. Somebody like, is she caffeinated? Like I have like a checklist in my brain. It's like, number 1, is she caffeinated?
Mm-hmm.
Because every morning before you drink coffee, you're mad. So I'm like, okay, so is she caffeinated? Okay, check, she's caffeinated. Okay, did she alter her sleep schedule at all? Okay, she did. Okay, so she probably needs a nap. Okay, no. Okay, no, she slept fine. Okay, has she eaten in the past 4 hours?
Thought this was about communication.
It
not
is about
attacking
communication.
me.
It is about communication because, like, in order for us to have efficient communication, you have to have all these boxes checked so you're in a good mental space.
You're the same way, though. If you have done too much physical labor of anything, you're like, I can't function. Like, everything hurts. Like, leave me alone. I can't even move a finger.
Yeah, because
If
I
you
damn
don't
near kill
sleep
myself.
like 12 hours a night, you're grumpy the next day.
Yeah,
Food
Yeah.
doesn't really bother you.
yeah, I'm pretty decent. I can pretty good be hungry.
Coffee
Pretty-
bothers you too. Like if you don't have your caffeine, you're slightly
I know, man. That's a crazy
not
drug.
as extreme as me, but you're still grumpy.
Yeah, for certain. No, I agree.
But again, you're always freaking chill.
Yeah,
Like all the time.
it helps not having female hormones. You know, like I don't have that up and down.
Yeah, at the beginning of the month, I'm a whole different person than at the end of the month. Like a whole different person.
So communication. No, it's tough because like communicating. I say it's tough. It's hard, but it's the best. I think it's the best thing you can do for your relationship too. Is just have open communication, and we talk about everything.
Yep.
I mean everything. I mean, there's times where I'm like, hey, I'm thinking XYZ. Like, how do you feel about that? Or like, you know, talking about subjects that are hard to talk about. Because I don't know about you, but like my parents grew up in this household where like seemingly they didn't talk about everything. And then when they did, like my parents were the kind of parents like if they were going to argue, they had to like go in the bedroom and close the door and argue. And I'm like, I never learned an efficient way to have conversations and conflict resolution in a relationship because I never saw it. My parents ended up divorced anyway, so, you know, whatever. It was probably the best for me. But, you know, going back to Grammy and Papa, my grandparents that were married. So, people don't know, my grandparents were married for like 63 years, 62 years, something like that. And it would keep that clock would still be going if my grandfather hadn't passed away. But when you asked my grandmother what was like the key, and she was like, he won't argue with me.
I wish you had learned.
Right. No, right. But he wouldn't argue with her. He would just get fed up whenever she was like trying to, you know, be problematic, and he would just go, yes, dear. And he just did whatever she wanted to. He was very submissive in that manner, but she would try to argue with him, and he wouldn't do it.
And your Grammy, she's got some
Spitfire.
fire in her.
Yeah, it's we're definitely of the same bloodline, so
Yep.
that doesn't help me. Yeah.
And mine were the opposite. Mine openly argued.
Goodness gracious.
Like war.
So, if you guys don't know already, my wife is Mexican, and she's the youngest of 4 brothers, and goodness gracious, you know, an argument breaks out at their house, and there's just, I mean, the fastest
Like,
Spanish language.
It could be an argument between me and one person, and all of a sudden, the entire family is involved.
Everyone has to have something to say, but everyone throws their, not even 2 cents, their $4 in, because it becomes a family argument. It's crazy.
So I never learned any good techniques to deal with arguments other than arguing,
Right.
which is not productive in a relationship.
No.
So that was like the biggest thing for me is like when we first started dating and anything upset me, I would automatically go into like, well, I have to be right and I need to have like the upper hand in whatever like argument we're having. But at the end of the day, it's like I had to learn how to like cave and not always
It's give and
right.
take.
Yep.
Compromise. Because you didn't have that in the arguments in your family.
Nope.
No, it was everyone went to bed mad at each other.
Everyone argued. Everyone like felt they were right. Woke up the next day and no one talked about it.
Bro, I don't understand that. People who don't talk about their issues and just bottle them up and put them away. I think that's very unhealthy.
And that's what I was used to. So by the time something upset me enough to react, there had already been 20 other things that had pissed me off.
Yeah.
So when I exploded, it was like a bomb.
It was like, you know what? We're arguing about,
You
like
breathing wrong.
this specific thing, and then you bring up 14 other topics, and all of a sudden you're just you grew up attacking people's character. Because that's what your whole family did.
I was a politician.
You couldn't stay on topic. You know what I mean?
No.
That's why it's super important that we stick to a topic on the podcast, because it's very easy to get away from that. And communication wise, I think it's so important to stay on topic, because that's something that you and I have also agreed upon too. As far as when we're arguing about something, we don't bring up if there's something specific, let's say. What's something that I'm not good at? Like helping with laundry, right? If we're talking about helping with laundry and you're like, you don't fold the clothes or, just switch the loads, this is a legit thing we've talked about. I hate laundry, just not good at it.
It's not that he needs to
Stop.
help with laundry.
Don't interrupt me. No, let me explain. So what I'm saying, but like if we're talking about laundry and you and I are having a conversation and I'm like, well, I'm busy or this, that, the third, or whatever excuse I might have because I don't want to do it. It's not healthy in that time for me to bring up, oh, well, I did the dishes the other day, you didn't help with, and then all of a sudden we start playing this game of who can stack up more things against the other person, because it doesn't do anything productive. Next thing you know, now we're both just mad, and then we didn't solve the laundry issue, and we're mad about other things too. It's just, like I said, throwing gas back and forth to open flames. It's just not good.
In my head, when we have arguments like that, if the sentence starts with, well, you do this, or you didn't do this, or but I do blah, 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 it shouldn't be said out loud.
Right.
The way I see it is we have a problem, it happened, come up with a solution.
It's like stay focused, stay on topic. Yeah.
Yep.
It's tough.
And part of that
it's tough because you want to so bad, because you get your emotions get heightened. Like I said at the beginning of this podcast, your emotions get heightened, and all of a sudden you want to be like, you know what, your car's a mess, you leave water bottles everywhere empty, you just want to start attacking them for everything, and it's like nothing good comes out of it that way when you do it that way.
There's steam coming out of my ears as I'm trying to be calm and peaceful and have a conversation with you.
You your teeth just
I know.
You're just grinding your teeth back and forth. Yeah. It's not good.
But the other thing that I have learned is, instead of waiting for me to actually be upset enough to say something, if anything even remotely is hey, don't do that, I'll just tell you in the moment without attacking you. So instead of being hey, can you not do that?
Yeah.
Try to word it in a way that's productive.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel the same way too, because if I don't mention to you, if I see something just as little as putting Amazon boxes by our recycling bin, and it just or overfilling our recycling bin, if I don't address it in a timely enough manner, it gets to the point where I just want to explode about it. And especially if I'm already mad about something else and I see it, I'm like, can you just fucking, and I just start I talk to you like a servant at a certain point, and I'm like, that's not healthy. I need to mention this when it's frustrating to me, or when it's not too frustrating about it to where it becomes a problem.
Because if you wait till it's the fourth time it happened, you're already going to be super emotionally upset, versus if you just said it the first time.
Yeah. And it's tough too, because we're imperfect people, but we just try our best to make it happen. Because I know that at the end of the day, that when it comes to communication, we really understand each other. We've been together for, as I'm 26 and you're about to turn 27. So it's yep. We've been together since we were 19. So we became adults together. You know what I mean? So we were fresh out of high school. You had just got done with college at 19, and I was still in college. And barely in college. I think it was my second semester when we started dating. And, it's just one of those things where it's we've learned a lot about each other. So that helps a ton. What kind of communication advice would you give to a newer couple? Maybe just listening? Or is it one of those things that I don't even know if I can give you guys really good advice if it's a newer couple, because you're still in the honeymoon phase. If you still think... Different. if you still think, if you're in a relationship and you're like, wow, we like never argue, or like we have very, very few arguments, and I still like if you're still in the honeymoon phase, which I think you know if you are or not,
My
right?
brother said it best. I don't remember if it was like on the second or third year. Like, he asked me, this was my second oldest. He asked me, he's like, how long have y'all been dating? And I don't remember if it was like 2 or 3 years. He's like, okay, you guys are going to make it.
Yeah.
Because it's like at that point, like, you guys have been long enough to see every single flaw each other has.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not clouded by this, like, oh, everything's fine and dandy. We're just playing house. Like,
Yeah. At a certain point in your relationship, like I think it's like at the 2-year mark. I think if you make
2 or 3 year mark.
Yeah, I think it's the 2 or 3. I think it's 2. I don't think it's 3. I think it's anywhere from 1.5 to 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you like get through the honeymoon phase. Like if they start to regularly piss you off, I think that's how you know you're getting out of the honeymoon phase.
You start getting agitated.
Yeah. Yeah, because the honeymoon phase, it's hard to go, okay, I need to pay attention to these things. I think if you're still in the honeymoon phase, though, you need to pay attention to how certain things bother your partner, and then how to deal with them when they're bothered with something as well.
I think the biggest thing would be like seeing them as like that sounds horrible, like an experiment or something, like observing them and understanding like where they come from. For example, like you could give 2 shits less about what the house looks like. But to me, like, it still has to be orderly, but if there's, like, pillows on the ground or if there's, like, a cup here and there, like, that doesn't really bother you.
No, it does. It does bother me. I'm not the person, like, as long as everything's put away, I'm fine. It doesn't have to be, like, the walls don't have to be scrubbed. That's
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, but for me, it's, like, almost like a, like, OCD level. Like, if I don't think my house is in pristine condition, like, I will not be able to function.
Yeah.
And you know that. So you know that if I'm, like, having a moment, like, okay, like, this isn't really a big deal, but to her, it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
So it's, like, just understanding, like, the other person's perception, because that's their reality.
Well, and when it comes to doing... excuse me. Anybody listening, if my voice sounds any different at all, I just had my tonsils removed, and I'm almost at the 2-week mark, so I'm still recovering.
He still won't stop talking.
No, never.
Like, as soon as he walked out of the surgery room, I'm like, oh, man, you can still talk.
Going back to communication, I was talking to the nurse immediately as soon as I was cognizant. But no, so, like, when you're in modes like that, where you're like, I have to deal with this, my brain is cluttered because my house is cluttered, I put my feelings aside, and I try and be very cognizant of how you feel, because there's nothing I can say to you, or I can't just be like, can you just calm down? Because then all of a sudden I just threw gas on top of the fire.
To
exactly.
Explode. Like,
right.
You're a dead man.
Right. So that's why I think it's super important that you understand how the other person is, and you put your feelings aside, and you go, you know what can I do to help you in this situation too? Which is hard to do if I've already got something else going on. We're both pretty understanding of each other too, so it works out pretty good. But in saying everything we've said, it's not easy. It takes a lot of work. That's one thing I've noticed as somebody who likes to study other people and what they're good at. Whenever I talk to somebody who's been married for a long time, they never say it's easy. Never.
What's
they say it's a lot of work.
We have above our bed, like,
still choosing this.
You.
Yeah, still
like,
choosing this life together.
A choice. It's an active.
I'll say the quote if you give me a second.
Oh
gosh, lady. The quote says, "Still choosing each other every day."
Because it's a choice. It's not something you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, like, I love this person, like, and that's all that there is to it. Like, no, like, you're going to have moments where you're like, I could punch this person in the face right now.
Right. Love is a verb. It's an action. A verb means it takes action.
But you have to just work towards making sure that at the end of the day, like, whatever problem's there, like, you guys resolve.
Yeah. And work through it. Like I said, you guys are on the same team. You guys have to want the same thing. You have to have couple goals. Go ahead, babe.
I feel like I have to raise my hand or else I won't get a word in.
I'm dying. Go ahead.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
You need water?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Don't bring other people into your problems.
Oh, yeah.
Like, don't sit there and talk to your best friends about whatever he did, because they're just gonna
And it's
fire
okay.
you up.
But it is okay to talk shit with your friends about your relationship as well.
There's a difference. Like, I will never talk
That's
to
just
my
venting.
friends, like, expecting them to give me help. Same thing, like, I would never, like, go to my family and be like, Ryan did this, like, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Because they're always going to be on your side or have, like, mixed.
And they're only getting one perspective at that point,
Correct.
too. Yeah.
Correct. So
Deal with it amongst yourselves. Yeah.
Your little bubble.
Yep. But it does take work. Communication is the hardest, but I think the most important thing. Mm-hmm. So, anything else you want to do before we close this off? Or you think that's good for the first one?
This podcast was like all over the place.
Yeah. It had a bunch of me coughing at the end. I'll be okay.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
You can't really keep a conversation going if you're
Did
coughing.
you have fun? Did you have fun?
Yeah. I think I can get better over time. I'm like super like, this is weird.
Yeah. You do. It's like anything else. The more you do it, what is it? What did Nick say when he was on the podcast? Consistency builds competence, or something along those lines. Competence builds confidence. So the more competent you do becoming the podcast, you get confident in doing it.
Like I'm like, there's a microphone in my face. Like, do I look here? Do I look there? Oh my god.
Everything's falling apart. No, everything's fine. It's as long as we have a good time doing it, that's what's important to me.
Yeah, no,
So.
I think it's productive, and if people have like actual topics that they would actually care to listen to,
yeah,
like I think that'd be helpful because
Reach
now
out.
we're just kind of
reach out through Instagram. That's our favorite social media for both of us. Reach out and let us know what topics you want to hear about or anything like that. And if you don't tell us anything, we're just going to do the ones that we come up with as we come up with them. So we'll try and be pretty regular with this. And yeah, thank you guys for listening. Like, subscribe, whatever you need to do. Follow us on YouTube, whatever. But thanks for doing this, Danny.
You're welcome.
All right, love you.
Love you.
This episode of Somehow We're Adults is over, but if you'd like to support the podcast, you can subscribe to one of the levels of the Patreon, where we will release bonus episodes that can't be found anywhere else. Any of the money that we get from the Patreon would be used to upgrade old equipment, as well as get new gear so that we can make the best podcast for you to tune into. You can also follow the podcast Instagram at Somehow We're Adults, where I share clips and content about the podcast, and the link in the bio will take you to any of the Somehow We're Adults pages. I encourage you to check out another one of the episodes if this is your first time listening, and if you're a repeat listener, thank you for your support. I love making the podcast, and I hope you tune in for future episodes of Somehow We're Adults.